Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. Today is the 113th anniversary of Titanic's sinking. It's kind of incredible that a relatively limited thing, that certainly wasn't limited for the people involved, but it is just an event that includes about 2,500 people. It's not like World War II where just about everybody is touched by it, but it's incredible to me that this event that had relatively low impact, or should have based on the number of people who were there, is still so well remembered over a century later. Titanic's ability to capture the public imagination makes her a really good poster child for the historic preservation of ships that are left like Battleship New Jersey, a vessel very near in length and size to Titanic. Since today is the 113th anniversary of the vessel's loss, I wanted to just take a little bit of time and talk about some of the Titanic-related stuff that's happening in the news right now. I've got three different things I'd like to touch on today. First of all, last week the BBC dropped a story that an expedition 2 years ago did a complete 3D scan with hundreds of thousands of pictures of the wreck that are going to make Titanic more accessible than she's ever been before. The last time the Titanic was dominating the news cycle was when the Titan submersible was lost. And that really goes to highlight that visiting the actual wreck is dangerous. It's dangerous for the wreck itself, which is deteriorating, and it's dangerous for people who go 2 miles underwater. And so access to the wreck has been limited to folks with the means to get extremely specialized technology, and even then, it's not a sure thing that you get access to the wreck site. So, I really commend the folks who have put together this fantastic 3D map of the ship. And according to this article from BBC, we linked in the description below if you'd like to read it yourself. But according to this article, they are working towards making that available to everybody. So you'll be able to see it at certain institutions or through VR goggles. And I imagine we'll get to the point where you can scroll around on a computer and do that as well, which I think is a fantastic way to explore the wreck site. And it's a fantastic way to keep learning about the wreck, because up until now, what we know about the loss of Titanic has been glimpsed through the very narrow window of like Dr. Ballard looking through a porthole on Argo, or through a camera from Jim Cameron's expedition down there, that in the darkness of 2 miles underwater away from sunlight, you just can't see a very big part of the shipwreck itself. This is the first time that you can see the entire thing and get a look at its scope. Our good friend Park Stevenson, who's been on the channel before, is the executive director of USS Kidd, currently in dry dock in Houma, Louisiana, said a quote that I really love. "Titanic is the last surviving eyewitness to the disaster, and she still has stories to tell." Titanic was lost 113 years ago. Everybody who was on her, everyone who saw her, everyone who has ever seen her above water is gone now. So the shipwreck itself is the last survivor of that night. That line really resonates with me. Of course, Parks himself is a museum ship person. As a museum ship person, it really resonates with me, because we're going to come to a day where this ship is the last survivor. The cruiser Olympia, right across the river from us, already has outlived her crew. The battleship Texas will be coming up on that, as will many of these other ships that served exclusively during World War II. Fortunately, New Jersey gets to put that off a little bit by virtue of having crew members on board up into the early 90s. But that's a finite resource which time will take away from us. So at a certain point, learning about these ships, learning about the events that they participated in, will only be possible through archaeological research of the vessel itself. And what that expedition 2 years ago did, that they just released now, is made that far more accessible. You can come on New Jersey. New Jersey was saved. You're 99.999% of you are never going to get the chance to experience Titanic's wreck in person. But through this scan, you get to experience it, and perhaps we'll be able to do some sort of crowdsourced research of the ship and its disaster as we each go through areas of the ship and her debris field and find evidence that helps point to whether survivor accounts are correct or incorrect. Remember, up until Dr. Ballard found the wreck in the mid-'80s, we didn't know if she broke in half or not. Some survivor accounts said she went down whole. Others said that she split up. Most of the survivors were the folks in the lifeboats, and they weren't within line of sight of the ship when she was actually lost. So we need to be able to corroborate survivor accounts and say, okay, this one is accurate, this one is not. And the article points out that this expedition has helped them corroborate the survivor account that the ship had power right up until the end. And that sounds really fantastical because the engine rooms are low in the ship. There's some of the parts of the ship that are flooding. Plus, these crew members of the ship are civilians. Are they going to stay at their stations shoveling coal into the boilers? Or are they going to try and rescue themselves? Well, this has provided some very real evidence that the ship had steam and had power right up until the engine rooms were completely flooded, and that's why every single member of the engineering department that was down in the engine rooms and boiler rooms was lost. Scans like this are able to prove that sort of thing, and that's super cool, and I'm really excited to get to explore this more in the future. Another recent article, this one from the New York Times, and we'll link it in the description below, although that is a subscription-based site, so I'm not sure all of you will be able to read it. So the article, which came out on April 8th, we're releasing this video on April 14th, the anniversary of the ship hitting the iceberg, although she'll sink after midnight on the 15th. But this article, released on April 8th, 2025, is titled, "So You Think You Know a Lot About Titanic?" And it specifically looks at a lot of children, young children, who know insane details about the ship. Like we're talking, some of them are teenagers, but many of the children they find to interview for this article are like 4 and 5 years old. I remember as a 4-year-old, I transitioned from liking Thomas the Tank Engine and train engines to liking battleships. I very distinctly remember that, and I've never moved on from that fascination with these huge machines. But I was the only one in my friends group that was into that sort of thing. And it was extremely isolating, feeling different from everyone else, that I thought that these big machines were important and interesting, and other people didn't seem to, at least not to the same extent. So it's really cool seeing this article about kids today who are still interested in this same sort of thing. I'll never forget, obviously when I started working on museum ships, I became a lot less isolated because I was introduced to all of you guys through the YouTube channel. I was introduced to my coworkers who were also into this. I went to conferences where I met other museum ship staff who were also interested in this. And so I felt a lot less isolated. But what we talk about at all those conferences is, young people just aren't into these the way we are. Well, that's not true at all. You look at this New York Times article, and yes, there are still people like us, like you and me, out there who are growing up who are interested in this sort of thing. And that's extremely exciting for me to see. And it's interesting specifically that it's ships like Titanic that they're choosing to highlight for this sort of thing, because there are kids that are super into just about everything that's out there. They could have just as easily done this about dinosaurs. There's a new Jurassic Park movie coming out this summer, or any number of other things. But they chose Titanic. They chose a large ship like I'm into. So it was a cool article. It made me feel seen. It made me feel a lot less isolated. and you guys might take interest in that too. That said, we're not sponsored by the New York Times at all. We've got no relationship with them, and this is something that you probably have to pay for. But if you already have a New York Times subscription, it's definitely worth giving a read if you haven't already seen it. The final piece of news that I've got on this 113th anniversary of Titanic hitting the iceberg is that my favorite building blocks company, Cobi, is releasing new Titanic sets. So I've got a couple of these here right now. These are already on sale. And I absolutely love these because in the past, Cobi has released some really big, like 1/300 scale sets about Titanic. Just for this model on my desk is a 1/300 Cobi New Jersey kit. So it's about 3 feet long. Titanic's almost identical in size to that. So that's a really big kit. Took me about 8 hours to build. So not everybody can get in on that. The 4-year-old who's interested in Titanic probably can't build that set yet. But they've released these sets, which I really like, Titanic and her sister ship Britannic. And these are both in 1/700 scale, which is the smallest version that Cobi's released yet. And these are not as expensive as the 1/300 because they've got a lot less pieces, so younger kids can buy it with the money they make from cutting the grass. And they are also quicker, easier to build. So I love that they've got this product range, this super accessible that goes from the really detailed 3-foot long ships to the, these are about a foot long at 1/700 scale, a little bit longer than that, but still surprising amount of detail, a lot of playability, and they look good sitting on a shelf. And check this out. I have a suspicion that the guys at Cobi are like me and like the kids in this article, and that they're Titanic obsessed and have been for a very long time. The box art even shows smoke coming out of 3 of the stacks, but not the 4th. Titanic's 4th stack was just for show. It's actually over in an engine room and not over a boiler room. They just wanted 4 stacks on there to match the Canard liners like Lusitania and Mauritania that they were competing with. So that if they get little details like that, that only me and a 4-year-old in Idaho are going to get, then you know that they're doing the details in the model justice. In addition to these 2 kits, they do have another highly detailed 1/300 scale Titanic coming out in the near future. I actually don't have one of their 1/300 kits. When I started collecting them, they were already sold out. So I haven't bought one. I didn't go and buy one used because I had a feeling that at some point in the near future they were going to release another one that was even bigger and better than previous ones. So I'm excited to get my hands on that when it comes out later this year. These are already available. If you'd like to pick one up, we'll drop a link in the description down below to buildcobi.com, the American-based retailer for these. But in July 2025, they're going to be dropping that 1/300 scale kit. So if you haven't picked one up in the past, or if you have but you want one with more detail, this one's coming out. It's going to have 3,230 pieces. And so that's nearly 1,000 more pieces than my New Jersey model in the exact same scale. And it's about 6 times more pieces than either of these kits. So, do you know why Britannic has this weird paint scheme compared to Titanic? Let us know in the comment section down below. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals, including Cobi. Again, there's a link to Cobi's website in the description down below, where you can buy a number of kits, including New Jersey and Titanic. You can also support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find about the museum and our channel. Thanks for watching.